Nonetheless, that's the way it is. Anna, I can't give you something I don't have. Come on, think about it. Charlotte is my...
Get into it with our cook. Did you have a problem with her scones? Belle has nothing to do with you.
In the same way that it was so frequently the case whenever Tracy Quartermaine was involved, the Quartermaine home was vibrating with tension. Tracy, who was never one to shy away from confrontation, had become a defining characteristic of the Quartermaine legacy thanks to her sharp tongue. She had her sights set on Martin Gray, a guy whose charisma and legal expertise had earned him a place in ELQ's orbit, but whose motivations Tracy had long questioned. This particular morning, she had her sights set on Martin Gray. Martin, who is known for his impeccable southern manners, had arrived at the estate with the expectation of having a regular conversation concerning ELQ's most recent legal entanglements. Instead, he discovered Tracy sitting in the living room, enjoying her coffee with a look that could make milk curdle. She was seated in a regally seated position. With a tone as silky as silk, Martin greeted Ms. Quartermaine and said, "Good morning, Ms. Quartermaine. I had no idea that you would be here at such an early hour. The most of the time, you are too busy going around in circles in the boardroom." An eyebrow was raised by Tracy, and a wry smile formed on her lips as she did so. "And you are typically too busy demanding outrageous prices to bother with pleasantries," the speaker continued. "Should we get right down to business, should we?" A challenge regarding loyalty. Martin put his briefcase down and sat down opposite Tracy, maintaining his cool throughout the entire conversation. "I'm going to assume that you did not call me here in order to trade recipes. How are you feeling right now?" A narrowing of Tracy's eyes occurred as she leaned forward. "Mr. Gray, let's have a conversation about loyalty. That is, specifically yours. I've been thinking about some of the things you've done recently, and I can't help but question where your true allegiances lie." With a southern drawl that was oozing with amusement, Martin let out a giggle. "Are you loyal, huh? Coming from a Quartermaine, that is quite impressive. It is said that you all have a reputation for being about as loyal as a cat in a room full of rocking chairs." The muscles in Tracy's jaw contracted, but she did not flinch. An lovely analogy. However, as you can see, Martin, the Quartermaines may argue with one another, betray one another, and even betray one another, but when it comes to the protection of ELQ, we are as united as a pack of wolves. Would you be able to the same thing about yourself? The dispute regarding ELQ. During the time when Tracy was expressing her concerns, the tension in the room was evident. Martin was accused of playing both sides in a recent corporate conflict, and she insinuated that his advice to ELQ had been less than truthful. She made this accusation. The words that Tracy spoke reverberated around the room like a whip. "I've been in this business long enough to recognize when someone is hedging their bets," she remarked. "In addition, I have noticed that you, Mr. Gray, have been pruning the hedges a little bit more than I would like." Martin made a mock surrender gesture by raising his hands. "Now, Ms. Quartermaine, please wait just a moment to continue. I have not done anything other than serve the interests of ELQ to the extremely best of my ability. Please let me know if there is a problem with the advice that I have provided. Nevertheless, are you suggesting that I am playing both sides? Those are some really severe allegations." A smirk appeared on Tracy's face. "My area of expertise is in making serious allegations. Additionally, if you have nothing to conceal, you won't mind being scrutinized to some degree." The dance of the words. As Martin leaned back in his chair, his smile remained as self-assured as it had been before. He was determined not to be surpassed. "You are in a league of your own, Ms. Quartermaine. and I have dealt with my fair share of difficult clients. However, you are in a league of your own. You have this peculiar ability to make people feel as though they are being tried for something, even though they are not. Tracy had not missed a single beat. The reason for this is that I am able to detect the presence of a guilty conscience. This is something that you, Martin, are virtually reeking with. Their words were as cutting as knives, but they were delivered with an undercurrent of begrudging respect. The two continued to wrestle with each other. When Martin justified his conduct with smooth logic and charm, Tracy responded with razor-sharp wit and an unwavering resolve to find out the truth. Martin's defense was in contrast to Tracy's. Ned makes his entrance. Their passionate conversation was abruptly cut short when Ned Quatermain entered the room, his demeanor indicating that he was mildly annoyed by the situation. What exactly is doing in this room? I was able to hear both of you from the other side of the hallway. A tone of disdain could be heard emanating from Tracy as she turned to her son. Ned, good morning to you. I just finished having a wonderful conversation with Mr. Gray about the significance of loyalty, I said. Ned caught a glimpse of the tension between the two of them from the moment he opened his eyes. ALQ has benefited tremendously from the contributions of Martin Tracy. Would it be possible for us to begin World War IE over breakfast? Martin let out a giggle. It is my pleasure, Ned. It is gratifying to learn that my efforts are appreciated by someone. After crossing her arms, Tracy continued to look intently at Martin. You are not excused from responsibility simply because you are appreciated. Simply keep that in mind. A temporary quiet period. It was quite evident that Tracy and Martin appreciated one another's brains and persistence, despite the fact that they had hostility against one another. By the time they had finished talking to each other, they had come to an uneasy agreement, despite the fact that neither of them was willing to trust the other completely. During the time that Martin was getting ready to go, Tracy said, "Let's get one thing straight. I do not have faith in you. Not at this time. Nevertheless, if you demonstrate that you are dedicated to ELQ and the Quatermain family, you might just win my respect that you deserve." With a grin on his face, Martin tipped his fictitious hat. "According to Ms. Quatermain, I will accept that as a challenge. On the other hand, if there is one thing that I enjoy, it is a good challenge. An impression that will last." Tracy couldn't help but get a smirk on her face as Martin left the mansion. She acknowledged that he was a brilliant individual. Nevertheless, she was a Quatermain, and she had witnessed a great number of intelligent men come and go. She mumbled to herself, "I'll keep an eye on him," as she walked away, in case it happens. Upon his return to ELQ, Martin continued to think about his interaction with Tracy. He saw a woman who was strongly loyal to her family and legacy, which was a characteristic that he couldn't help but appreciate. This was hidden beneath her razor-sharp demeanor. The battle of wits had been won for the time being, but both parties were aware that this was just the beginning. It was inevitable that Tracy and Martin's relationship would serve to keep everyone in Port Charles on their toes, because alliances were always shifting throughout the town.
How did you get dragged into this? I mean, we barely know each other.
Well, Carly was there when Sybil grabbed you,
Right.
and I was in Africa with Holly.
There are very few instances in which the turbulent lives of the people who live in Port Charles provide moments of quiet understanding. Nevertheless, in the midst of the mayhem, Sasha Gilmore and Jason Morgan, two people who appear to be from different worlds, find themselves drawn together in a moment of great connection. It is not via lofty plots or perilous missions that their paths connect. Rather, it is through the shared experience of loss, the ability to persevere, and the need to find clarity in their shattered lives. It was a random encounter. It all started at Charlie's pub, which neither of them had anticipated. Since her difficulties with mental health became public knowledge, Sasha had retreated to the establishment she was accustomed with in order to avoid the judgmental looks that seemed to follow her around everywhere she went. In spite of the fact that she had gotten her work life back on track, her personal life continued to be a precarious balance. On the other hand, Jason's visits to the pub were normally for business purposes. However, tonight, he was looking for some peace and quiet to escape the unrelenting demands of the criminal underworld. When Sasha entered the establishment, Jason was enjoying a beer at the bar. The very fact that she was there drew his complete attention. She appeared exhausted but resolute, the same Sasha who had smiled through deception and pain in the past. His recollection of her from the Corinthos family circle included her relationship to Michael, her problems with addiction, and more recently, her unfathomable loss. Sasha paused, noticing Jason in the distance. She gave some thought to leaving, but something about his unruffled demeanor made her feel more at ease. She indicated her agreement with a nod, and he pointed to the stool that was sitting next to him. Jason spoke in a quiet and steady tone, saying, "You appear to be in need of a break." A veiled grin appeared on Sasha's face. Even while a break would be good, life doesn't exactly come with a button that allows you to halt it. Discovering areas of agreement, the conversation between them developed in a natural way as the night progressed, revealing previously concealed aspects of their personalities. Sasha experienced a rare occurrence in which she felt that she was fully seen without the filter of pity or judgment. For Jason, it was a welcome change to have a conversation with someone who was not deeply involved in the risks associated with his secret life. "I heard you've been through a lot lately," Jason quietly stated, referring to Sasha's struggle with addiction and the heartbreaking death of her baby. "I've been through a lot lately," Jason continued. A momentary mist of melancholy appeared in Sasha's eyes as she took a short swallow from her beverage. According to her admission, yeah, it's been a lot. But I'm making an effort to concentrate on what lies ahead. Some days, it seems like it may happen. On certain days, however, not so much. Jason gave a slight nod. Grief does not adhere to a specific timetable. You just keep going like this. Sasha was impressed by the straightforwardness of his words. She was aware that Jason had experienced loss before. A resemblance could be seen between his calm strength and the resiliency that she was working to create within herself. "What goes on with you?" Sasha inquired about it. "Yes, you have experienced your fair share of suffering as well. What is it that keeps you going?" It was Jason's shrug. "The folks who are still in need of your assistance are the ones you concentrate on protecting. Although it does not alleviate the agony, it does provide it with a sense of purpose, one that is commonly vulnerable." When Sasha began to talk about the shame that she still felt, their chat became more in-depth. The confession that she made was, "I keep asking myself if there was something that I could have done differently. If only I had been more powerful and intelligent, perhaps my child would still be alive today." Rather than maintaining his normally tough approach, Jason's visage softened, and he now displayed empathy. In response, he stated, "You can't blame yourself. It is quite ineffective. I can assure you that I have spent years contemplating the ways in which I could have handled certain circumstances better. The only thing it does, however, is to keep you mired in the past." The vulnerability that Sasha felt was reflected in his eyes as she met his stare. "However, how do you go with the situation? What can you do to stop having the sensation that you are letting down everyone around you?" Jason took a little pause, carefully selecting his words. "Take things one day at a time," she said. "At times, you will have the sensation that you are drowning. On other days, you will discover moments of tranquility. And as time goes on, such times become more extended. Simply allowing yourself to feel what you are feeling without trying to escape, it is all that is required of you." Unanticipated satisfaction. The words that Jason spoke to Sasha were more than just wise counsel. They were a means of survival. Neither did he attempt to gloss over the suffering or provide meaningless platitudes. He merely imparted the facts of someone who had endured adversity and emerged victorious from the experience. It was Sasha's willingness to be transparent that provided Jason with a sense of comfort. She brought to his attention the fact that strength did not consist of excluding other people, but rather of confronting the muddled reality of life head-on. This was a lesson that he frequently failed to remember in his capacity as a guardian and enforcer. Throughout the course of the night, they found that they shared more similarities. Both Sasha and Jason had experienced the burden of being misunderstood. Sasha had been the face of dishonesty during the time that she pretended to be Nina's daughter, and Jason had been the ever-present enforcer of organized crime. During their conversation, they discussed how challenging it was to allow others to look past their reputations and reveal the weaknesses that lie behind the surface. Sasha spoke with a tone that was tinged with resentment, saying, "I don't think people realize how much we carry. They're only aware of the errors and the consequences, but they do not perceive the struggle that is required to continue." Jason gave a slight nod. "It is not necessary for them to comprehend. As long as you are aware of the cause for which you are fighting, that is sufficient." A fresh comprehension of the situation. When Sasha and Jason went their separate ways that evening, they had already established an unspoken link between themselves. In order to maintain communication, they did not require any major announcements or commitments. Because of the turbulent nature of their lives, the connection that they enjoyed was founded on mutual understanding, which was a unique gift. As the days progressed, they discovered that they were coming into contact with one another more frequently. Jason made a visit to Deception because he was interested in learning more about the new mental health initiative that Sasha was leading. In turn, Sasha sought out Jason for guidance when she wanted guidance on how to deal with the residual guilt she was experiencing. The more they interacted with one another, the stronger their connection became, and although none of them stated it out loud, they had become a source of comfort one another. Sasha was able to negotiate her grief effectively with the assistance of Jason's consistent presence, and Jason was reminded of his own ability for hope by Sasha's determination. The effect of ripples. The development of their friendship was not overlooked by anyone. The amount of time that Jason was spending with Sasha caused Carly, who loves Jason and is always protective of him, to raise an eyebrow. The comment that Carly made was, "You've been hanging out with her quite a bit. Should I be concerned about this?" The skull of Jason was shaken. "It's nothing more than a friend, Carly. She has been through a lot, and she is currently endeavoring to restore her life. I am aware of that." Lucy Coe, who was Sasha's confidant, couldn't help but tease her because she couldn't help herself. "Is that you, Jason Morgan? You have always had a proclivity for males who are shrouded in mystery." On the other hand, Sasha and Jason's relationship was not predicated on romantic feelings. Finding someone who understood the burden they bore, a kindred spirit who did not attempt to fix them, but rather stood by them, was the goal of this endeavor. Ways to move forward. In ways that were not anticipated, Sasha and Jason both started to recover as their relationship grew stronger. By gaining inspiration from Jason's calm resilience, Sasha was able to find the strength to forgive herself. As a result, Jason came to the realization that being vulnerable was not a sign of weakness, but rather a source of power. At the same time, they served as a reminder to one another that even in the most difficult of circumstances, there was always a way forward. In addition, despite the fact that their relationship might not be classified as either a romantic or a platonic friendship, it was something much more profound. It served as a reminder that no one needs to confront the hardships of life by themselves.